The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, hello everybody. Welcome to our webinar for CrazyTalk 8. In this webinar, we're going to be introducing you on how to create your very own head from an image in CrazyTalk 8 using a single image. So this webinar is mainly focused on the beginner level, so it may be a bit slow for some of you, but we're going to be going slow for the beginners and going with some tips along the way. I'm going to be providing you with some useful little tips that will enhance your workflow later on. And if you have any questions later on, you can please fill them in the questions panel in your GoToWebinar little window there. There's a questions panel. Feel free to fill in any questions, and I will have a Q&A session, question and answer session, at the end of this webinar. Probably the last 10-15 minutes will be reserved for that. So if you have any questions about CrazyTalk 8 or any of the other products that Reallusion has to offer, I'm well versed in most of them, so feel free to ask me, and also about future products as well. So let's get started. First of all, we're going to be, want to make sure you guys have your audio adjustments set all okay. In step one here, it details that you should uncheck both the advanced settings for automatic volume control at the bottom, and inside the GoToMeeting interface, make sure that your questions and chat section is expanded, because that's where you're going to be placing the questions that you have later on in the Q&A session. And step three, make sure that you optimize your internet bandwidth by terminating any other downloads. So don't be downloading any BitTorrent stuff. Otherwise, you may experience a little bit of lag. I mean, it's already laggy enough because we're broadcasting to quite a few people right now. But yeah, that's basically it for the important steps, the preface to this webinar. I guess I should introduce myself. My name is Kai, and I will be your host for this webinar. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. I know we have users from all over the place. And we're going to get started first off by introducing CrazyTalk in a PowerPoint form really quickly here. And then I'm going to be going through the process of creating a 3D head from a single 2D image in CrazyTalk 8. And we could probably expand on that later, because to be honest, this procedure doesn't take very long. I'm going to just decrease the audio here a little bit. This process, basically the process that I'm going through in this webinar, the live demo part, if you're experienced, you can probably get it down to less than 5 minutes, or around 5 minutes. So I'm just going to be going at a slow pace and a detailed pace, and we can always answer questions later on. Okay, so we're going to talk about what is CrazyTalk 8 first. I have a little bit of a live demo. I'm going to review some showcases for you guys, some reviews and awards of CrazyTalk 8, and then we'll get to our Q&A session. All right, so what is CrazyTalk 8? Well, it's pretty awesome. It's one of the most popular facial animation tools on the planet, and you can animate both 2D and 3D facial images. So we're not limited to 2D images. Now we're able to create 3D heads, which is pretty awesome. That's a new update with CrazyTalk 8, and that provides you with a lot more options, in addition to the option to export your 3D head into iClone, which is our 3D animation tool, and also Character Creator, which we can talk about later. If you have any questions about those tools, we can probably explore those a little bit as well. All right, so people who want to animate stuff, yeah, super good for you guys. And it's really easy. It's a very, very easy program to learn, and compared to a lot of the other animation software out there. So if you're a beginner, if you don't know anything about animation, you don't really need to worry. This is super easy stuff to learn. And we can talk about the animations later on as well if we have time. Okay, so let's get started with the next slide here, the live demo. And in the live demo, what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be giving you a bunch of tips for different kinds of images, for what kind of images you want to use to create your head. So on the left, we have that beautiful young lady there with a good example. And there's a couple of reasons why this is a good example when you're selecting your image. The first reason is because it's directly facing the camera. Okay, so it's not angled at one side or the other. It's directly facing the camera, and the side image is at a 90-degree from the camera. So if you have two images, you can also use two images to get a little bit more texture, original texture on the side of your 3D head. We'll talk more about that later on as well. You can use two images. And the second is to make sure that you're not smiling. I know a lot of us like to smile, but in this case, we want a very neutral expression. We want the character to be looking with a death stare directly at the camera. All right, no smiling like we have on the right-hand side here, and the eyes need to be straightforward as well. And the third important thing here is keep the hair out of your forehead because we're going to be creating skin, natural skin, from the texture of the 2D image that you provide. So you want to keep your hair slicked back. In this case, she has it in like a little bun in the back there. You don't want to be, draping over your forehead forward. And then also no teeth as well. So keep your mouth closed and just have a neutral expression. That's the ideal image that you want to use. All right, let's go to the next step here. We're going to also demo the facial feature points. So I'm going to show you where to put these facial feature points and give you a couple little tips that I've found with my experience on how to make things a little bit better and just get the ideal optimal results. And we'll talk more about that later on as well. And then there is a 3D face profile. So there's all sorts of different profiles that you can use, whether or not you have different ethnicities, generic facial shapes for different ethnicities. I know there's going to be different shapes for all ethnicities, but these are the generic ones that we have set here. You can see all the options on the left, and that's what we're going to explore a little bit later on. These are just basic base shapes for your character's head, and you can modify different stuff later on. Contour and texture alignment. So this section here is where you're going to basically make sure your textures are aligned properly to your character's head. And facial contours, you can mess around with the forehead, the cheeks, the chin, mouth and face, and all that fun stuff. And we'll get to that later on in the live demo. And this part is very important, the texture blending, because to get a nice 3D head from a 2D image, you have to be familiar with the texture blending. I'm going to explore that in detail with you guys later on. And again, any questions, feel free to put them in the questions panel, and I can go back and review it for you guys if you need at the end of the webinar. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the showcases first. Now, we have a lot of people using CrazyTalk 8 in the professional context. One of the main guys that we have is Jesse Griffith. He's one of the animators, head animator on Jimmy Kimmel Live. And if you go to our website, we have a Reallusion TV section. I can actually show that to you a little bit later if we have time at the end. We have a Reallusion TV section in our website where actually if you create your own images or your own your own videos, your own productions, you can actually submit those into us and get exposure for your animations. Okay, so if you think you've done a really good job with your animation, send it to us and we'll review it at Reallusion TV and we can put it up on our website. So you'll be famous, internet famous. All right. And yeah, so Jesse Griffith uses it in Jimmy Kimmel Live all the time. It's a really fast tool. I mean, the reason why this type of show is very useful for them is because it's a very fast tool. I mean, they're always updating their skits because of news events and everything like that. So they'll say, oh no, half an hour I need this or an hour I need that, and so from then on you just use a fast tool, the fastest tool possible, the better. Zach Shelton, we met him at Comic-Con, and he uses it for a motion comic, which is really cool. And you can check out more about this on our website later on. He's also a featured animator on our website. Herbung Productions, they're out of Germany. They've been using CrazyTalk for ages. They do political satire type stuff. You can see the candidates on the left may be a little bit dated, but that's some of the stuff they did. And Yekaterinburg Gallery of Modern Art, and these guys are from Ukraine, Russia, not Ukraine, and they've been using CrazyTalk 8 for a lot of really cool stuff, like a 3D art gallery, and we can explore this later on if we have time at the end. Okay, we have a bunch of reviews and awards. Macworld, which I was at, Best of Show 2013. People really loved it, and you can use it on your iPad, your iPhone, and everything like that. We have an app for the iPhone that allows you to send and create animations really easily. We can explore that later on. And it's been recognized as the Mac App Store Best of 2012. among millions of apps worldwide. So we got the best of 2012, which is a pretty high honor in the Mac Store. And a couple other reviews that you can, read on your own time. We'll send out this tutorial, or not this tutorial, this PowerPoint rather, along with the recording, a link for the recording of this webinar. So if you miss anything as we go along, don't worry, we're recording all this, and you'll be able to review it later on, okay? Okay, and we'll just close down the PowerPoint for now, because we're going to do that question and answer section at the very end. And just keep in mind as well, before I continue on, we are going to be sending out a survey for you guys, because we always want to know, how we can improve our webinars, what you liked about the webinars, and what you suggested for the future webinars. So yeah, we encourage you to fill that out, and we'll be sending you, I believe, maybe a $10 certificate for the content store for your participation. I'm not totally sure on that, but we will be sending out some sort of reward if you fill out the webinar survey for us. All right, so your feedback is much appreciated. All right, let's get into the live demo part. This is what we want to talk about. Okay, so to create a 3D head in CrazyTalk 8, the first thing you want to do is go up here to create 3D head. Now, before I get into that, let's take a look at the content manager first. Let's explore a couple of examples here. If we go to the actor section, we have 2D actors and 3D actors. Now, in CrazyTalk 7, all the way up until CrazyTalk 7, we only had 2D actors. So there's basically 2D images which we stretched. And if we play back, you can see this cat. You may recognize this cat from previous versions of CrazyTalk. And you can animate this cat, make it sing, make it talk, and everything like that. So this is an example of a 2D image that we've just kind of modified to look like a 3D head. All right, and I'll just pump up the volume here a little bit. Unfortunately, we can't pipe audio directly through GoToMeeting, so I'll have to do it through my microphone here. And if we go over here to like animation, let's just choose something like the voice scripts. Okay, these include animation and talking at the same time. So let's try something like, we don't want a dog growling. Maybe we'll just do this bragging one here.
Ha! So what? You can't touch me, because I'm from the internet.
Okay, so we have a pretty cocky cat there, and you can see there we have some facial expression and lip sync animation that's done automatically. All right, so that's all done in the voice script section here. And like I mentioned, if we have more time for animation later, we can explore that. And on top of that, if we go back to actor, there's 3D actors. So these 3D actors are new with CrazyTalk 8, like I mentioned. We have our mascot, JP. We can just double-click him and add him into our scene here. And we can, we do the same animation to him. Or let's give him a different animation. Let's give him, who knows? This avoidance.
No, of course not. I would never say such a thing. No, I think this is all just a big misunderstanding, you see?
Okay, so you can see the difference with him is that he's actually a 3D head, and you can turn his head around almost a 90-degree angle. 45-degree angle, I think, is the limit for CrazyTalk 8. All right, so this is the kind of head we're going to be creating. However, we're going to be creating it from a single image. Okay, so it's going to be pretty cool. Let's get right into it. All the way at the top here, create new actor. And we're going to create a 3D head. Now here's the little pictures that you saw before in the PowerPoint. I think we've already explored most of that. Now if you want to include two images, you'll have to import both images. You can see import side image and import front image right here. Now we also have a library of sample images that are included in CrazyTalk 8. So I'm going to be using one of the sample images because you can follow along, if you watch this recording later, you can follow along by yourself using the sample images embedded in CrazyTalk 8. So I'm going to select import front sample image right here. We have all these randomly selected people. And what we're going to be doing is we're just going to be using Adrian right here, this picture of Adrian. And there's a couple of reasons for this selection, which I'll explore a little bit later. Now right off the bat, you can delete it, you can rotate it, you can do a horizontal flip if you want. Okay, so these are just your basic options in the first step. So let's move on to the next step. This is where you mark your feature points. Okay, so this part is more important. Let's expand this. You can click and drag to expand it a little bit at the bottom right there. So it takes up more of our screen here, so you guys can see it if you're on a little puny tablet or something like that. Okay, and it says, please identify the fitting points by the following. So you can see a target point and a little description there. And basically this is exactly what I'm going to be telling you, but there are a couple of exceptions and some more detailed descriptions that I can give to you. Now, for your navigation on any of these windows, you can scroll your mouse button. So scroll your mouse button up to zoom in, scroll your mouse button out to zoom out. And there's a home function right here, zoom fit, so fit it to the window. And this will fit your characters or your photos, the photo of your face to the window. I'm trying to get it right there. And you can also pan use the pan tool right here. So this one you hold the space bar. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit and say I want it to pan. I can just hold the space bar, and you can see my cursor changes to a little hand. And then I can click and drag, like this, all the way around. If I have the space bar held down, I can left click and drag and move around like that, which is pretty cool. You can also zoom in with the plus button or this button up here, zoom out with the minus button or this button right here, and this one here will go back to the actual size, which is actually surprisingly this size right here, okay? And also we have this magnify tool as well. You can magnify a certain area like that. I want to magnify here, magnify there, or magnify whatever, okay? And here we have our basic, options for color level. You can choose a smart level to do automatic leveling for the ideal lighting of your character. I normally don't use this. I mean, you can do this in Photoshop, which is probably a bit more accurate before moving into CrazyTalk 8 or GIMP if you have the free version, if you want a free version. Color balance right here, so you can adjust the color balance with your basic stuff right here, highlights, midtones, and shadows, and just basically all your photo editing stuff. You can import it in another image if you want, okay? And this one here, I believe, is color level, okay? So they're pretty simple, pretty straightforward. I'm not going to really mess around with those at this point. You can do that because each individual image will have its own challenges. Okay, so let's focus now on getting these picking points, these feature points correct, okay? So the first one, outer corner of the right eye. You want to place it right on the outer corner, right here. And once you click it, it'll turn red. And if you hover over it, it'll turn green. You can click and drag it to wherever you want. So once you've placed it, you can always replace it somewhere else, okay? So don't worry about that. So we'll click that there. And this one's inner quarter of the right eye. And this one you want to place right on this kind of sclera area, I think it's called, this little kind of meaty area inside your eyeball there, or between your eyeball and your nose there. All right, so just place it somewhere like that. And again, on the left side. So on this side of her head, we'll do the same thing. Place this one over here and this one over here, okay, at the corner. Now the nose is probably the most tricky part to get right, and we'll talk more about the nose a little bit later on. But your initial fitting point for the nose tends to be on the very tip of the nose, okay? So the part that's the most extruded from your face. So hers would probably be about here, I'm estimating. So right on the tip of her nose, we'll place it right there, okay? And then the next part is the mouth. So the mouth, you want to place the right corner of the mouth, one at the right corner, right here, and one directly in the middle. Now, ideally, your character has a perfectly symmetrical face, which none of us do. I think nobody on this planet has a perfectly symmetrical face. But generally what you want to try to do is have your mouth, nose, and chin markers right in a vertical line like this. Okay, and we'll get to that a little bit later on in this webinar. And then the last one for the mouth goes on the left corner of her mouth right there. Now this one here is the outer edge of the right cheek. So what we can do is we can pan over here to her right cheek, and it's basically the area where the cheek is out the furthest from the face. So you don't want to put it like right here. You want to put it about right here because that's the section where of the cheek where it's furthest away from the face, from the middle of the face, I guess. Okay, so some people have higher cheekbones than others, so some may be down here, but this female has some fairly high cheekbones, so we'll place those right over here. Okay, and more often than not, it's right at the end of where your ear curves. So your ear curves around and goes like right here, but hers may be a little bit further down. But in general, I like to follow that rule where it's right at the end of the ear curve. Okay, but hers is, like I mentioned, fairly protruding in this section right here. So we'll move on to the next step, right edge of the jaw. Now, some people may have very square jaws, and their jaws may go out quite significantly. But in general, general rule to follow is the section of your neck that meets your face, is the section where your jaw will end. Now again, I mentioned different people may have different facial structures. So hers is going to be right here, because I imagine she doesn't really have a super strong jaw. It's very smooth. So generally, I'm just going to place it right here at that section right there. Okay, then when we move on to the chin, again, we can draw a line directly down, hypothetical line directly down from her nose to her lips to her chin, and the very edge of the chin right there. We're going to place that marker, and then we're going to place this other one at the opposite side. Okay, and right where the neck meets the jaw right there. Okay, and again, this is not super. It's a good idea to get a very accurate placement at the very first step. It's not super important. You can always adjust it later on, but I like to keep things very accurate from the beginning, so you have a good base to start with. Okay, and then I'm going to draw a line with my mouse directly across from her left cheek and go all the way to her right cheek. Okay, or her left cheek, right to left cheek. Okay, from our perspective, it's a little bit different. Now this one on the top of the skull, a lot of you may be tempted to place it on top of her kind of afro there, but it says top of the skull, so you kind of have to estimate, where you imagine the top of her skull would be. And again, draw a vertical line up from the nose, and I imagine the top of her skull would be about right there. Okay, and that's really all the fitting points taken care of right there. Okay, so you can zoom in and check to make sure everything looks okay. I think maybe the eye could be a little bit further in. And we're just going to go work from there. Okay, so there's your basic fitting points. Now again, I mentioned I can do this whole procedure in like 5 minutes, but I'm taking it easy here just to kind of give you some hints and tips along the way. Okay, and we'll go to next. And that's going to create our 3D head. Okay, so you'll soon see the 3D head appear. So boom, you can left click and drag, and you can get a nice 3D view of your head. So just by doing that, we've generated this awesome looking 3D head. This is an incredibly powerful tool, especially if you're looking to use 3D tools. You want to export to 3D tools. This is super important, super powerful tool for video games, your own productions, or what have you. Okay, so let's take a look at these 3D face profiles now. So we have Caucasian, African, Malayan, Asian, big nose, wide chin. Okay, all these different facial profiles. These are under male, and we also have female ones, which we're going to choose because our character, well, in fact, she's a female. So let's choose the female profiles, and let's take a look from the profile view at the difference, because this is the most noticeable view. So I'm going to choose this Caucasian view right here, and you can see we get fairly typical Caucasian features right here, and you can contrast that with the African features right here, and go to Malayan. And you can see the just subtle varieties in the different types of faces. This one is Asian, and then we have a big nose, so this is fairly interesting, and heavy face. So this is like a base for like a chubby character. You can use this heavy face, or there's a short chin right here and wide chin. This is more like for a manly type of face, I guess, more masculine. All right. I'm just going to choose the African base, okay, because our character seems to be African American, so we'll just go ahead and choose that. And let's move on to the next step. Okay, so profile, pretty easy stuff. Again, you have your typical zoom and everything like that. Okay, so you got to choose that for a base for your character. And again, we can adjust all those facial features later on. Let's just go to the next step here. Now this is the most important step right here. This is where you're going to really refine everything and get everything perfectly set up. Okay, so we're starting with the front fitting, okay? And what you want to do here is just place your eyebrows in the right place. So you can actually, if you mouse over the item right here, or the markers, you can actually click and drag the entire thing. And don't worry if any movement happens on the right image right there, because you're just messing out these ones on the left. Okay, and you can click and drag these markers as you wish. Okay, and they'll always go back to position. Now for the eyes are quite important. I tend to have 4 markers around the iris. So the iris is this this section right here, the dark section, I tend to try to make my 4 markers go right around the edges of the iris. So this one, her irises are a little bit higher, so it won't exactly work for this particular situation, but if the eyes are right in the middle, then you can do that. All right, just make sure that this green line here goes right along the eyelid, okay, right along the inner part of the eyelid. And after that, you should be okay. Let's move on to the left eye now. So the left eye, I'm going to do the same thing. Take these markers, move them like this, and just make sure that you don't have any white eyeball stuff outside of your markers, and you should be good to go. And this part here, you can see that's a little bit of a problem, so we need to take this right marker and bring it over that way. Okay, we're going to take our eyebrow, bring it up slightly. And we can probably bring this up a little bit as well. Okay, now if you want, you can also, zoom out on this image on the right here, and you can pan around it to take a look at different features. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Let's move on to the nose now. So the nose, like I mentioned, is probably the most complicated part of the facial fitting process. You can see we now have these little yellow sections which we can modify. But first what I want to do is explain a couple things about the nose placement, because there's not much detail here. This is pretty important. So what you want to do, this little section, this yellow section here in the middle, you want that to really conform to the bulb on the tip of your character's nose. So you want to kind of try and nicely place that around the tip of your character's nose bulb, I guess you can call it. Okay. Now hers is a little bit high right now. This section is a little bit high. We can probably make it a little bit further down. So what I'm going to do is just click on the entire fitting point here, and click and drag it a little bit further down. So we're going to place it just like that. Okay. And you can see once we do that, on the right side, the nostrils, the dark texture of the nostrils goes actually into the actual nostril of the character. So that's what we want right there. Okay, we don't want it to be like this. We don't want it to, have something like this. And you can see that the 3D nostril and the texture of the nostril are not correct. You want to make sure that middle section there is wrapped right around the bulb of the nose, right around the bottom there, and that should be perfect right there. Okay, so we're good to go. In addition to that, there's one other thing that we need to take a look at, 2 other things actually. This section out here, this curvature for the nostrils, you want to make sure that you expand that a little bit to wrap around the entire nostril. So this one can be expanded a little bit, just up there, and we'll make this one, move out this one a little bit as well. Make sure that it's not jagged. Make sure that it's relatively rounded, and we can probably bring this nostril down a little bit as well. Okay, so this is basically the most important part, because this is where you're getting the texture all correctly mapped to your character's head. And also for the nostrils, you want to make sure that these little markers here, these 3 markers, are kind of wrapping around the outer edge of the nostril. So this one we can take right here, move it up like that, and this one we can probably bring it a little bit in like that as well. Okay, so our nostril texture is perfectly set up. We'll do the same thing for the other side. Just bring this nostril just like that, and bring this fitting point down here, and this one round it out a little bit, and just bring this one down. Okay, and then we can rotate around, take a look at our nose. It looks pretty good, I think. We have a pretty accurate result. And now these sections right here, the yellow highlighted sections, this is what these are for. If I click and drag the nose right here, you can see I can drag it down, or I can drag it up. So I can have like a ski jump upturned nose, or I can drag it down like that. Now keep in mind that everything you do, you can press Control-Z to undo it. It'll go back to the regular position that it was before. So that's basically that. Now I forgot to mention as well on the right, we have these preset views. We can go to front view. We can go to 45-degree angle view if we want. Let's go to home here first and zoom out a little bit. So we can go to 45-degree angle view and 90-degree angle view. Okay, so the nose looks fine, and 45-degree angle, I think we're looking okay. All right, so what we're going to do now is there's also this option here for eyelash on and off. Now, if you have a female character, they're going to have significantly longer eyelashes than the male characters. I Eyelashes are kind of a gray area for me. On certain characters it will look really well, but on other characters it won't look that good at all. So let's just keep the eyelashes off for now. We can always add those later on as well. Now this part here gets into the resolution. We'll talk more about the resolution a little bit later. But let's continue on with the mouth. Okay, very simple, the mouth. We're just going to click and drag this whole thing down. I think we're pretty good for time, so we can probably speed it up a little bit just because we are probably familiar with all this stuff. Put these marker points in the middle, and this line has to go right along the separation of the mouth. We can bring this upper lip area down, just like this. Make a nice heart where the lips are, and there we go. Let's have those lips nice and outlined. Perfect. All right. Then to go into more detail there, and then we go back to the face. So the face is basically the final step, and this is where your first option is to morph your character's head in various ways. So if I take this top section down, you can see I can make my character's head really weird or really small. Okay, I can give her a cone head, or I can give her like a regular human head somewhere down this area. Okay, and again, you can click on these individual markers and raise individual sections of the head as well. Okay, we're not going to mess around too much with that. There's really no point in this case. I'll bring it a little bit up there. All right. This little gizmo section here, if we click and drag that, we can expand the head or contract it sideways like this. Okay. Again, we're pretty set on what we have right here. I don't think we really need to modify it too much. But you can also, cool in here is you can do the ears. You can make the ears flap out like that, or you can make the ears go back in like that. So this can be fairly useful. And if you want to change the size of the ears, you can also use these gizmos on the side, these little fitting points here to make the ears a bit smaller. And bring those down slightly. The ears could be slightly smaller, I believe. Don't pay too much attention to where the markers are positioned on the left-hand side, by the way. Pay more attention to the results on the right, because sometimes the markers may not be entirely accurate, okay? Little tip there. And we'll see that when we go to side fitting, probably. Okay, so let's go to all. You see there's all the fitting points. Now you can do calibration. You can do eye calibration. You can change the eyeball depth. You can bring them out like that, although I don't know why you'd probably want to do that. Depends on the character. Or you can bring the eyeballs all the way in. And if we go to the side, you can see, oh my gosh, her eyeballs are gone, all right? So I recommend just keeping the eyeballs at 0, unless there's extenuating circumstances, which there likely will not be. Okay, then you can test your calibration. So here's the looking, okay?
Let's look up, down, left, right, and roll the eyes.
Now don't worry about that little texture section on the interior part of the eyeballs, because generally good practice is to actually replace the eyeballs with CrazyTalk 8 generated eyeballs, which we'll explore a little bit later, okay? And there's also blinking and everything. We're going to just skip to the mouth right now. And here you can see the mouth. You can choose the teeth and tongue depth. You can go through this on your own time. I'm just going to kind of speed it up here. And you can test out vowels and consonants. I like the vowel one.
Let's try some vowels. A, E, I, O, U.
Okay, so there's some really nice results already on the lips. So they're very accurate lip syncing results. Okay, that's all we're going to worry about with the front fitting. Let's go to side fitting. Now side fitting, like I mentioned here, in certain cases your markers will be way off. But don't worry about the markers where the markers are on the left, because sometimes this will happen and you basically just want to keep them where they are. Say for example I decide to take this side section in, you can see the result right there. That's not really what we want. So let's just kind of keep it where it is, and I think we'll just go from there. This bottom one right here, this will bring up your, this one's kind of important actually. If we, let's go to the front, take a look at the front of our character, or just choose this one here. And pan over a little bit. And if we take this little one on the bottom, we can bring that up, and you can see the result right there. So you have to be very careful with these fitting points. And again, pay no heed to the where the fitting points are on the left, because that sometimes happens. The nose you can see is kind of messed up too. But just kind of in relation to where everything else is, you can expand the nose out a little bit if you want. Just use these gizmos to do so. Okay, and mouth, again, a little bit off, face way off, but we're not going to worry about that. We'll just go back to all, and then there's the same calibration. So let's move on to the texture blending now. The texture blending is also very important. And this is where we're going to focus on the skin texture, okay? So first of all, let's get the right texture blending setting going on here. Now, there's 3 different blend types. Blend type 1 is what I would recommend for images that just have a single front-facing image, because there's nowhere to collect any original texture for the side of the head. So what you want to do is this little white section here on the little mannequin's head there or whatever is very small. And this means that it's using only a little bit of the original texture. Everything beyond like her cheeks right here is automatically generated by CrazyTalk 8 to blend into your character's skin. So say for example I went to blend type 3. Now you can see we're going to have a bit more contrast in this area, and there's a little bit more of an issue with the chin there. Now we can fix this issue with the chin here by going back into the front fitting, and if we go to this section over here, go to like face, rotate the head again there. If we bring this little section in a little bit, you can see it can get rid of a lot of that stuff. But you do that at your own risk, because once you do that, notice when we do it a little bit further, it's actually affecting the mesh of the character. So the mesh is probably more important than the actual texture, because you can always fix the texture later. So don't worry too much about this if you have this little section here. But we're just going to be using, like I mentioned, we can probably use the second one or the first one. The first one is what I'm going to use because that looks the most natural. Okay, and you can also select the skin color that you want to blend. So I like to use this color picker here. We choose the color picker, and we choose like a really dark area of her skin, like right here. You can see that I'll darken up the entire head section right there. If we choose something like this red on her lips, it's going to look really weird, like she has some kind of weird, strange sunburn. All right, so we want to choose a really dark section of her eye, like probably under her eye, under her eyeball is really, really dark. And I think that looks the most natural. So we'll go ahead and keep that. Now let's talk a little bit about the skin roughness. And we're going to zoom in really close on the character's head here. Just take a look at the skin roughness. Now this is where CrazyTalk will automatically generate some pores, okay? So right now we have skin roughness on fine. Let's change skin roughness to rough. I wouldn't normally recommend using the rough preset for female characters because it's mostly made for rugged male characters. But here, if we increase the strength, you can see it's going to create this sort of like, really rough texture. And you can increase or decrease the pore size. If we take the pore size down, you can see her skin texture looks really rough. And it's automatically generated that all around her head for a more realistic result. Now, what I like to do for female characters, choose fine skin roughness, obviously. And I like to have the pore size relatively in the middle, somewhere like 5, I think, maybe even 4 or 3. It really depends on what kind of results you're looking for. I think this skin texture looks good. But, here's what I wanted to as well bring in this little doodad here. Preview resolution is currently at low. Let's change it to high, and we'll see the result. Once I change this to high, take a look at the difference. So now you can see when we change it to high, the skin resolution looks a lot better. So when you're doing the skin resolution settings, I'd recommend having this on. So this little globe, whatever it is, should be red, okay? And then we can see a little bit better. So if I change the pore size to something higher now, you can see the pore size at 10. And yeah, like I said, I like to keep it around 5 or 6. And if we go back now to the rough, you'll see a bit more of a interesting result right here. More accurate than it was before. Okay, so again, make sure it's on high resolution preview before you do any modifications. So this skin looks a lot more manly, and if we choose it to change it to fine, it looks a lot more fine, like a smooth female skin. All right, because they tend to take care of their skin a little bit. All right, so we have that head taken care of, and now we go to the detailed morph section. We're going to kind of wrap this up really quick here because we're edging in on the Q&A session time. But in the detailed morph section, this is where you can modify your character's head in all sorts of really funky ways. So I like to start off with this full head, okay, this full head feature selection, and you can change the heavy value to something really big. And you can see she just gained about 40, 50 pounds. And that's a really easy and simple way. Just a single slider and your character can gain a lot of weight. You can also do the opposite. You can take the heavy down to minimal values, and then you have a person who hasn't eaten in quite a while. Or maybe they just look like that. I don't know. But I would keep the heavy kind of in the middle, unless you have unless you want to, create her fat cousin or something like that. Then you can pump up the heavy all the way to 100 if you want. It's also good for creating families as well. If you want to have one character, they look identical but one's fatter than the other. This is an interesting way you can do it. This one narrows the head like this, or widens the head. I like to keep that relatively neutral. And this young one is actually very handy. Comes in very handy for creating younger characters. If we bring the young up, you can see the features get a little bit closer together, like they haven't really expanded yet. And that's how it's a useful way to create younger looking characters. If you take it all the way down, the character will look generally a little bit older. Okay? We'll just keep it at neutral. And now, like I mentioned with the full head, there's stuff like forehead, all sorts of stuff here. Brow depth, we can increase the brow depth, decrease the brow depth. That's a fairly significant one when you have a 3D head, because that really defines a lot of the character's facial traits. Cranium slope, you don't want to do that, mess around with that one too much. It looks kind of weird. Forehead angle. Temple size is one that I've found that can, really affect the head quite significantly, but in a very subtle way. You can see it's very subtle, but especially once the character has hair, it's barely noticeable. But it's a very subtle and very detailed modification. The nose. Now there's tons of nose stuff. I'm not going to go through all these in detail because we have better stuff to do, but you can go through these on your own time in detail. Nose tip round, nose tip slope. You can see that little nose tip slope right there. Nose bridge width. If we go back to the front angle right here, you can see that one's pretty significant. You can increase or decrease the nose bridge width. So there's all these cool, funky little sliders that you can mess around with. I'm not going to worry too much about them. Cheekbone height here again. I think you guys get the gist of this. So let's move on to the next step, which is finally applying our character into the 3D view. Okay, so there's mouth and jaw again. Kind of fun stuff that you can mess around with. The jaw I kind of like because the jaw angle. Let's go for a 45-degree angle here, and you can see the jaw angle right there. This one can, really be useful when you're creating a very beautiful model type character. You want to have a jaw angle and high cheekbones. The chin recede. You can bring the chin out, bring it in like that. But I think you guys generally get the idea of all the options here that are available for you. Okay. I can't really give you any tips there because it really depends on what kind of character you're trying to create relative to which kind of sliders you should use. Okay, so we have our head. I think we're good to go. Let's go ahead and apply it. The main stage actively modified. No, we don't want to save our project. Okay, so there's our female character right here. Now, there's a couple things we can do here. The first one is I'm going to replace her eyes. And we can do that by going over here to Actor Elements, and there are eyes right here. Now, I want to preface this by saying that we are releasing CrazyTalk 8.1 by the end of this month, I believe. It's either the last week of this month or the first week of the next month. And we'll be really enhancing these eyes and everything. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to ask me later. I can tell you more about what we're enhancing. Okay, so I can choose, say, for example, this brown eye preset right here. Okay, so there's a character with the CrazyTalk 8 eyes. Now, once we do this, we don't have to worry about the eyes going all like wonky and stuff, or showing the eyelids like they did before. Because what CrazyTalk 8 does is it just takes the texture of your eye and places that inside the 3D mesh of the actual character's eye. So if your eye moves too far down, there's going to be a second kind of reptilian type eyelid that appears. So this is a way to avoid that using the presets in CrazyTalk 8. And to modify that further, you can go up here to eye settings. Okay, if you want to modify any of the eye settings, you can do so. You can see the eyes may be a little bit off. So let's go ahead and select her left eye, and we can change the height of the left eye like this. Bring it up a little bit right there, and we bring it to the side slightly. So you can change the positions of the eyes. You can change the depth and the scale and everything like that. There's eyelashes, like I mentioned before. We can talk about that in just a moment. But yeah, here's basically generally where you want to modify your character's eyes. You can close them. Oh, I guess that's not working right now. But you normally should be able to close them and preview the eyes right here. So now you can see if I rotate this around, we no longer have those second reptilian eyelids. Okay, so we have our character looking around, and you can change the color of the eyes as well. So diffuse, take that brightness down. Whoops, we have the eyelash selected, not the eyeball, right here. And various options right here. So if we have eyelashes on our character, we can add them right here, eyelash length, and kind of give her some nice, thick, curly lashes. All right, so she's looking fairly beautiful there. Let's close that down. So those are your eye settings right there. And once that is closed down, then you can actually go into your hair as well. So under Actor Elements, we go back to our main folder, we have hair options. Okay, and there's tons and tons of hair options here. Now, preface here, I've installed 2 packs. One is the Party Fun Pack, and one is the, I'm not sure what that one's called. It's Character Essentials, I think it's called, which has a number of other different haircuts. So we can give her like a symmetric bob. We can give her a long ponytail. In the Party Fun Pack, there's some, bald comb-over hair if we wanted to give her that. We can give her a big afro with rollers in the hair and everything. Really the varieties here are quite endless. You can give her a punk kind of mohawk hairstyle or a short mohawk. I think this one kind of suits her. Looks like Tina Turner from Mad Max. Anyway, so let's give her the afro one. Let's go with the afro because this one bounces around a lot. And from there you can also give your character clothing as well. So under Actor Elements, you can go to, there's clothing under body here, and you can just give her, I don't know, let's give her a conservative looking collared shirt right there. All right, so she looks like some lady you'd find in a laundry commercial. And then back to Actor Elements, under accessories, you can add accessories to your character as well, like the face. If you wanted to give her glasses or a clown nose and stuff like that, we can do so. These cool looking sunglasses. We can do nose rings or reading glasses. You can give her like more of a hipster style. Now keep in mind that once you apply these, you can't apply 2 of them. You can only apply 1 of them at a time. All right. So these sunglasses look kind of cool. I think we'll just go with the reading glasses. All right. And then we can also have earrings on the character. Certain accessories can be applied to different areas of the face. So keep that in mind. Party Fun Pack over here. And these are just different glasses. There's beards as well, which are kind of cool, but not on this character probably. Okay, and then back to Actor Elements, there's teeth that you can modify as well. So I showed you a couple of the teeth options. We can give her like, really missing teeth, which is really kind of strange for this character. And we'll go back to the normal teeth, I think, which are fine right here. Okay, and then we can go and animate our character. So animation is right over here. And this is the last thing I'll show you. If you have any questions about other things, then again, feel free to put them in the questions panel. Let's give her a female voiced script. I forget which one is a female. Kissing, confirmation. We may not have a female one with the... Okay, we'll use a spoiled teen.
Whatever. I'll do what I want. Okay. You ain't the boss of me.
Okay, that one's pretty suitable. Okay, so there we go. We have some facial expression and some facial animation.
Whatever. I'll do what I want. You ain't the boss of me.
And you can see that the hair bounces along with her head movement as well. And in addition to that, there's stuff like Automotion and atmosphere settings. If you go to atmosphere settings, you can adjust like wind and gust frequency. If we put wind on, for example, and we put the strength fairly high and gust frequency fairly high, we can test that out and see what the results are.
Whatever.
Doesn't seem to be affecting it a lot with her afro, but
you ain't the boss of me.
With certain types of hair, it will be quite effective. Anyways, okay, I think that's all that we're going to talk about for this. We choose physics on.
Whatever.
Okay, anyways, that's all we're going to talk about for the live demo. So we'll move on to the Q&A session right now. So if you have any questions about CrazyTalk 8, the procedure we went through, or any other future products that we're releasing, I can answer questions about CrazyTalk 8.1 a little bit. I don't have too much info on it yet because I haven't really messed around with it too much. But we will have tutorials on 8.1 coming up in the very near future. So I'm going to open up the questions panel now. And let's open her up. And here we go. Okay, so someone asks, is there a way to, Susan asks, is there a way to import CrazyTalk 5 and CrazyTalk 6 characters that I purchased into CrazyTalk 8? That's a tough one. I wasn't even around when CrazyTalk 5 came out. The characters should be backwards compatible as far as I know. Now, I haven't tested that out, but I know that CrazyTalk 7 characters can be used in CrazyTalk 8. It is backwards compatible with ones you can currently purchase in the content store, although I'm not sure about CrazyTalk 6 and 5. So sorry about that, Susan. I can't really give you a super accurate answer on that, but you can email me later on at kai@reallusion.com. That's Kai at reallusion.com. And I can probably get a better answer for you then, because normally I'm not the CrazyTalk guy. I'm normally the iClone guy, and I've a little bit more in-depth knowledge about iClones. So, but CrazyTalk 8, yeah, definitely send me a question via email, and I'll be able to respond to you from there. All right, so Larry asks, would like more sets of Gary Pie comic faces. Oh, that's awesome to hear, Larry. I'm actually really good friends with Gary Pie. He's an awesome 2D developer for us, both for CrazyTalk 8 and CrazyTalk Animator. If you guys haven't seen Gary Pie's stuff, I'd recommend checking it out on the content store. I'll just go into that really quickly here just to kind of show you. Just take this questions panel down a little bit. Gary Pie stuff should be in here somewhere. One of these things. Oh, there we go. Okay. So Gary Pie's comic faces. These are for CrazyTalk 8. And what he's done is he's just basically drawn images. So these are the original drawings right here. And he's basically done what I just did and mapped these 2D drawings onto a 3D head. And you can have them look like a 2D image or a 2D head, but in a 3D environment. So that's really cool, these results right here. I'd recommend checking that out. You can do the same thing with your own images as well. If you can draw your own faces, you can do this exact same thing as well. And I do have a tutorial, I believe it's a tutorial or a webinar. Anyways, you can check the Reallusion channel, YouTube channel. We have a tutorial or a webinar on how to do this. I think it's a webinar. And if you can't find that, I can send you the link a little bit later. All right, so this is our content store. You can buy a bunch of content for CrazyTalk 8 and all that fun stuff. All right, next question. Craig asks, how do you load this into Character Creator or iClone? That's a pretty good question, Craig. What you want to do is you want to go up here and export RL head. Now you can add it directly to Character Creator by sending this head to Character Creator right here. Now let's just quickly do that actually, because it's a very important pipeline for us. So let's just open up Character Creator first of all. And we can actually open up Character Creator and iClone. So when I import in a character, what's going to happen is that you have to use this little option up here. Let's actually export the RL head first before we do that. So exporting RL head, we'll just call it a test head. Save it on my desktop here. So that's going to export this head to RL head format. Now RL head format can be used in CrazyTalk or iClone, so it's really universal format. Okay, and let's just load up a character with some clothing here. Maybe let's make her a flight attendant or something. I'll just load in this one right here. And then if we also go into, we'll load up this character into iClone or into Character Creator first. Just waiting for this uniform to load up here, and then I'll import it directly to Character Creator. Okay, So this is the original character right here with the original skin and the original face and everything like that. We're going to change her quite dramatically by going to Export to Character Creator. Now, Character Creator comes free of charge with iClone. So if you have iClone, you will have Character Creator. Just so you're aware, it's not a separate program that you have to purchase, although you can purchase a lot of cool stuff for Character Creator from the content store, which we'll talk about in just a moment. It's validating and saving the file. Let's go to my desktop here while we're waiting. And you can see there's my test head. And it's called iClone Character Creator Head Files, okay? Otherwise known as an RL head format. And 18 megabytes, so not too big, not too crazy. And now in Character Creator, it'll come up with the option to import the morph, import the texture. You want to make sure you have both of these on and reset the dynamic appearance texture settings. Press OK. And I know it's fairly complicated considering the very simple stuff we just went through. But we have other tutorials on that, and you can always feel free to ask me questions later on. And I'm going to, speaking of questions, I'm going to load up my questions panel here. I know you guys can't see the questions panel, but okay. While waiting for this to load, I'll answer another question from William Rice. What if the person in the picture has a beard? Well, William, if the person has a beard, you can also use that as well. Now, the beard option gets a little bit tricky in CrazyTalk 8, but if you import it into Character Creator like I have here, we have beard options. And it gets into a lot more complicated stuff that I don't really have time to explore here, but you can see here's our female flight attendant that we've added in. Now, keep in mind that it just imports in the head. It doesn't import in the hair or the accessories or anything like that. But I just happen to have, I believe, the same hair. Party Fun Pack right here. You just load in that afro. And we can give her back her original hair. All right. So, and then we can load this character into iClone. So if we go over here, send character to iClone, that'll just load up iClone. And then we can animate her. And notice that the skin of her arms and legs also changes color to match the face. It's a super useful and intuitive feature. If you have like a black character, you can import them into Character Creator, and the rest of their skin will adapt to that color. All right, so now we're just loading up iClone. Let's go back to the questions here. All right, so Sean Loke asks, is the head, sorry if I'm butchered that name, but is the head created by CrazyTalk able to be modified in ZBrush? If it's possible, how is it possible? How to export to ZBrush, okay. Yes, you can export the head to ZBrush. Now, this again is quite advanced. For those of you who are beginners, you may get a little bit lost, but what you want to do is with your iAvatar, so this is the character in iClone, by the way. I'm just going to close the timeline here. Okay, so there's our character in iClone, and what I'm going to show here is how to export that into ZBrush. What you want to do is in Character Creator, go File, Export to OBJ, and Nude Character. So once you do that, you'll have the OBJ mesh. Now, it gets into a little bit more complicated because once you're in 3D Exchange, you can also do the same thing. And we have tutorials on that. And this is probably a little bit too much detail to get into in this webinar, but you can export the OBJ right here. And it'll export the nude character for you. You can also export FBX. Okay, so these two options right here from Character Creator. All right, so let's get back to basics here. Where's my questions panel? We have a few more questions to go, I believe. Okay, Marco asks, is it possible to import voices as templates? Yeah, okay, so if I want to make this woman talk, for example, I'll show this really quickly to you guys. You want to go up here to Create Script, and you can use your own voice, you can use text-to-speech, you can use an audio file, or you can import a CrazyTalk script. I can just record my own voice, for example, here. What did she say again? Oh, no, you didn't, or something? Okay, anyways, I'll just record my own voice here. Hey, everybody, this is the CrazyTalk webinar, and I'm just demoing this voice feature. Stop it, press OK, and go to talk mode. Hey everybody, this is the CrazyTalk webinar, and I'm just demoing this voice feature. Okay, it's a little bit strange with a female using my voice, but you can use your own audio files as well. I just wanted to show you a quick example of the awesome automatic lip sync. All right, so next question here. Micah asks, why can't you exchange hair between CrazyTalk and iClone? Hair will be a separate mesh. It's actually a completely separate mesh from the head, Micah. So you can only export one mesh at a time. And CrazyTalk 8 only offers the option for the head mesh export. Now in 8.1, I don't think that's set to change. But in 8.1, you have the ability to import eye avatars. And we'll talk about that later on if you guys have any questions. Okay, Larry asks, is there a way to make the background transparent? In CrazyTalk 8, making the background transparent, you have to go back over here to backgrounds. Background right here. Now, what you want to do is you can use a background like this default background. Again, I don't normally use CrazyTalk, but I believe, let me just try something here. I believe you can go to edit preferences maybe, and nope. I'll have to take a look at that later on, because I know you can change the background to, there's no, if you want to export transparent backgrounds, you can render your background or render your animation, and with a green screen background, I just take that out. Or I believe there's also the option to let's see here. Export video image, and yeah, so there's MOV. I'm not sure about the transparent background. I know you can definitely do it in iClone, but in MOV should give you two layers, a alpha layer and a front layer, I believe. So try MOV, try exporting with MOV, and see if that works. For images, you can use a PNG sequence. I know PNG is definitely the background is transparent, but for video, I believe you have to use MOV. All right. Test it out. Not entirely sure, but I know you can definitely do it in iClone there. All right, so questions panel one more time. About 5 minutes left for the questions. So if you have any last minute questions, fill them in right now. Okay, got a question from Rhonda about applying this to animals. Yeah, like I showed at the beginning, you can use it on your cats or dogs, and we have those facial profiles for like big noses or big mouths and stuff like that. You can do the same thing for cats and dogs. Now, the results may be sketchy. For like, I'm thinking about flappy dog ears, for example. You'd have to add those on as accessories later on, just like her afro. But that would be done in CrazyTalk 8 using the accessories. But yeah, definitely a lot of people use it for their animals. Tons and tons of people use it for their animals to create funny videos. All right, Sven says thank you. Thank you very much for watching, Sven. And we have another question from Cynthia. When I was importing into iClone 6, it looks very different, and the close and look was not imported the same. Yeah, because we've actually just established this pipeline between CrazyTalk 8 and iClone. Now there are some small features and certain things that will not be completely accurately calculated when we export from CrazyTalk 8 into iClone. And you can see like this female character. This is a pretty good example, actually. She looks almost exactly like she looked in CrazyTalk 8. And we've improved this. We've definitely been improving it. But in some cases, you may experience a little bit of change on your character's head. I haven't experienced that in a while, but I remember when I first started using this pipeline when it was in beta, we did have problems with that. But I think the developers have improved the translation from CrazyTalk 8 into iClone. And if not enough, they will be doing that progressively in the future. Okay. So I already showed how to export a head into iClone and Character Creator. Someone else had asked that question. Can this be imported into CTA? CTA, not yet, but we'll be releasing CrazyTalk Animator 3 later on this year, and we will have that option to import in RL heads into CTA 3, so you can import that head onto a CrazyTalk Animator character, which is absolutely awesome. And we'll have that in CrazyTalk Animator 3, but currently not CrazyTalk Animator. And CrazyTalk Animator has its own facial fitting process, basically like what I just showed you here. CrazyTalk Animator is just like CrazyTalk 8, but maybe a bit more advanced, more options for you for body animation and everything. So hopefully that answers that question. What do we got here? Color is different from the body. Okay, so Sean, XON, Sean, I believe, has a lot of advanced questions. I can't really, because those would take a long time to respond to in this webinar, so I can't really get to those at the moment. Unfortunately, you can email me, Sean, kai@reallusion.com. So Doug asks, how about importing more variety of hairstyles for business professionals, teens, et cetera, et cetera? We do have those hair packs, which I showed you. In CrazyTalk 8, we have the, whoops, let's go back here to, what are we looking at? Oh, actor elements and hair. So we have the party fun pack right here. We have the professional outfits pack, or not professional outfits, character creator essentials in Character Creator. Too much software to go through here. The hottest hairstyles is what it's called. Sorry guys, hottest hairstyles. These ones right here. And we're constantly creating new and improved hairstyles. We've released this recently for CrazyTalk 8, and we also have more available in the content store and in the marketplace. And if you're really handy with iClone, you can actually create your own hairstyles, and we can explore that in another webinar. Okay, question from John about Reallusion being at SIGGRAPH. Unfortunately, we're not going to be at SIGGRAPH this year. We are generally there every year. This is like the first year in 10 years we're not going to be there. We're focusing a lot of our efforts on new product development because we have two really big product launches that are coming later this year. CrazyTalk Animator 3 and iClone 7 at the very end of this year or early next year. And those are two huge launches for us. So we're really focusing all of our resources into product development right now. We're kind of trying to lessen the appearances at SIGGRAPH because it's quite expensive to go there. Okay, another question from John about can your heads from CrazyTalk be used on Genesis bodies? No, you cannot use CrazyTalk heads on Genesis bodies because the structure, the rig structure is completely different. You can only use them on Character Creator bodies. And honestly, there's a lot more options with Character Creator for body shapes and everything like that as well. So generally, I would just recommend using Character Creator bodies, which work just fine. Unfortunately, no transporting heads onto DAZ Genesis. The head transplant doesn't work. We'll not accept the new head, the donor head, from Character Creator or from CrazyTalk 8. Okay. Marco asks, is it possible to create a head in Character Creator as well? No, right now we don't have the option to create a head in Character Creator. I mean, you can, not the way you do in CrazyTalk 8 anyways. There's a different way to do it, another way to do it, but we can't really get into more detail on that in this webinar. Yeah, so you can email me about that later if you need, if you have more questions. Craig asks what's coming next in the product line. Craig, the next thing coming up is 8.1, CrazyTalk 8.1. So we'll have a few improvements to that, and hopefully that'll satisfy a lot of the bug issues that we've had previously. Yes, Larry asks, will the 8.1 update be free? Definitely, absolutely free. to CrazyTalk 8 owners. Okay, so John says thank you. Thank you, John, for watching. Thank you, Kevin. Thanks, Sean. So one more question from Mike. I brought some hair I need in the store, but I can only apply it in iClone. So if you bought iClone hair, you can only apply it in iClone. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the case right now. We may have further integration where you can apply CrazyTalk 8 hair to iClone, where you have to like purchase a separate license for that though. We haven't really worked on that at the moment. Okay, let's see here. And also want to mention that 3D Exchange, which is our conversion software, which you use to convert our format into FBX, OBJ, and so on and so forth, and back and forth. That software, 3D Exchange, will actually be integrated in the future into iClone. So we won't have a separate application for 3D Exchange. The 3D Exchange application will be integrated into iClone, but you will have to purchase a license to do all the conversion stuff. So James asks, is this Apple software? CrazyTalk 8 is for Apple and PC, but unfortunately, iClone and Character Creator are only for PC. So if you're an Apple user, yeah, sorry about that. We don't have Character Creator or iClone for Apple at the moment. So let's just do one more question here. Okay. So Marco asks, good question. If you purchase CrazyTalk or iClone, will I get future versions for free? Yes and no. If you purchase iClone 6, you'll get 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, 6.4, 6.5 as free updates. But when 7 comes along, you'll have to purchase the new license for 7. Now that said, you will get a discount if you already own iClone 6 and you want to upgrade to 7. You'll get a discount from the regular price. So keep that in mind as well. Mike mentions Bootcamp if you're using an Apple. Yeah, like tons of people use Bootcamp for this process instead of using a Apple version or a Mac version of iClone. You can just use Bootcamp and load it up on your Mac that way. One more question from Bobby. He asked, should I purchase Animator 2 now or wait for 3? Well, Bobby, if you purchase right now, you'll get the discount when 3 comes out. I believe if you email sales@reallusion.com, so this goes for everyone. If you email sales@reallusion.com and ask them, they should be able to offer you a good deal for the upgrade if you're considering purchasing right now and you don't want to wait. Okay. And also want to make sure that everyone knows about our forums at forum.reallusion.com because Mike asked about meeting groups for users. Our forums are fairly active, so if you go to forum.reallusion.com, then you can ask a lot of questions of our users. We have a really great community of users for CrazyTalk and for iClone. Very active and very interested in sharing stuff. So I think that's about it. We're going to end the webinar since we're about 12 minutes over here. So thanks so much for watching, everyone. Really appreciate you joining this webinar, and hopefully you learned a lot. We'll see you in the next webinar. And again, make sure to visit our forums at forum.reallusion.com and our YouTube channel. If you want to hear my voice even more, you can watch our tutorials on the YouTube channel. All right, so and this will be available for download later. And again, make sure you fill out the survey that we'll send after the webinar. So thanks so much, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon.